but people were left without any kind of communication from anyone in a position of authority to provide help for days and weeks. And it created massive problems. The immediate line of response needed to come from the county and from the mayor and from their emergency response director. And unfortunately, they did not communicate. They're still not communicating. There's still a huge lack of transparency and therefore an increasing level of distrust in any of the levels of government that should be bending over backwards to answer questions and to say, hey, here's what's going on every single day. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're having a hard time doing. Whatever the case may be, it's been a major problem from the beginning.
Tulsi is exactly right. The lack of transparency, the inability to provide any types of real updates to the people of Maui has not been happening, and it is leaving the people of Maui in a completely precarious position that they should not be in when these are the leaders of their state that should be answering every single question that they have. So welcome back to Empathic Times, everyone, where we are doing another update following the catastrophic fires that happened in Maui and the loss of life, the very likely land grab that is going on from the state governmental level, and also taking a look at more Maui local residents and what they have to say about this entire situation. The first thing I did want to take a look at today is the Tulsi Gabbard Joe Rogan interview, where I think that Tulsi is doing a really good job at the very least of keeping Maui in the forefront of people's minds and keeping it in that space of these are things that we need to talk about. These are things that we need to keep getting the media to investigate and look into, because there are just so many questions that continue to go unanswered.
They just weren't prepared. They don't know what to do. And it's incompetence.
I think that is very true. Maui has experienced drought year after year after year. Brush fires are a common occurrence, especially on the west side of Maui, where Lahaina is, the side of the island that was most impacted by this. Being prepared for wildfires on Maui is something that if you look at their emergency assessment documents, it's mentioned almost as a bit of an afterthought. Maui Fire has been vastly undermanned and under-resourced for quite some time. So there's all these different things you can look at from a preparedness level that should have been addressed long before. But from the county officials, yes, they were completely overwhelmed and unprepared for this unprecedented wildfire. It's the worst wildfire our country has seen in over 100 years. But the problem is, once you get to that point, like, oh shit, this is really, really, really bad. Not only in the hundreds of lives lost in that fire, but the surrounding communities of people who survived, but who went without power, who went without any cell phone signal, any ability to communicate with people, who didn't have, all of the gas stations in their neighborhood, they were empty. There was no way to get gas. They couldn't get food. They couldn't get clean water. The water supply systems were contaminated. I mean, there was disaster upon disaster that came in the aftermath of the fire that went unaddressed. Maui was my district for 8 years when I served in Congress, and had a lot of friends there and went out to those affected communities. And what I heard over and over again was no one from the county, the state, or the federal government has shown their face in our community. It is neighbors helping neighbors, families helping families, people on the island of Molokai, which they don't have much on their island. Everything comes in by barge. They're loading up whatever they have in their general store on these little boats and running them over to West Maui on a private boat dock, because that was the only place that they wouldn't be blocked from bringing food and water and medical supplies.
Now, why are people being blocked? I keep hearing that about people being blocked. Is it because they haven't gotten an accurate death count? Is it because they have to make an assessment of how much was damaged and it's so massive, it's so vast that they haven't been able to do that yet? Like, why is it being blocked?
I don't have a good answer. Why they continue to block the roads, again, to those surrounding communities, why they blocked people like Kai Lenny and others from using their jet skis and boats to try to bring supplies in through the water. You could say, well, we were trying to secure the area, but you're blocking friends and family from coming in and bringing necessary supplies, literally doing supply runs. So, I jumped on a plane that was doing supply runs from Kahului, the main airport on Maui, out to this tiny little airport that serves that community. And that was, for a lot of days, the only way that they could get supplies brought in. I don't know. I really don't know. But again, this goes back to, why aren't you communicating to people what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing? All the result of their decisions left people and families and communities stranded in their most dire time of need. And the mayor didn't go out and show his face until almost 2 weeks after the fire happened.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
I think that this is going to be the sticking point for so many people, including myself, where the sheer lack of transparency and information that's being provided, as well as just the actions of all of these elected officials in roles and capacities that are supposed to be there for the people when something like this happens. You don't get to just run away from a situation because it's inconvenient. And I think that that is why this entire situation is so ripe for the picking in alternative theories and people trying to understand why would a government fail their people so largely. And it's that entire aspect of, if you do not want people to be spreading what the government is going to say is misinformation, then provide us with the information, prove us wrong, tell us where we are wrong, and give us the receipts. But it's the sheer fact that they will not do that that is why so many people are questioning and continue to not believe the official narrative, because there are so many questions that continue to go unanswered. There is such a lack of transparency, and there's also just this energy. There is an energy and there is a presence of every single one of these local, county, and state officials that just give off this feeling of either I don't give a fuck or I can't do anything, my hands are tied, which just makes people say, one, why don't you give a fuck? And two, if your hands are tied, figure out a way to expose that. Be that whistleblower. Be that person to have the balls to stand up and expose what is truly going on and why people are being lied to. The people of Maui deserve to have every bit of information that the government can provide to them. But the fact that they continue to hide so much information is why this is an area that's going to be ripe for the picking in alternative theories, conspiracy theories, and just we do not believe anything that you say anymore because you have not given us any semblance of truth when you are speaking.
How is that possible? That these people could lose their home and then lose their land?
It is the number one concern of people there in Lahaina, is that a few days after this happened, I haven't spoken to the governor, but he said in a press conference, he said, we're talking to the attorney general. He said, I'm talking to my attorney general to explore options for the state to take over that land and use it to build workforce housing or build a memorial to for the people who lost their lives. Yeah. But the fears that the people in Lahaina have, some of whom, like Archie Kalepa, famous surfer, community leader, Native Hawaiian leaders, families lived in Lahaina for 9 generations, now being told, well, the governor is looking at taking that land, taking ownership of that land, that it is unconscionable. Taking away the sovereignty of people's rights to have a say over their home, in many cases their generational lands, is such an abuse of power. And so this is, and I'm glad that there are leaders in the community who are leaning into this fight to make sure that they're fighting this fight before anybody tries to do that, rather than looking in the rearview mirror and saying, gosh, I wish we had done something.
I am a forced American. I'm not a proud American. I am forced to be American in Hawaii. You're telling us to fill out this paperwork so that you can give us the least amount of money. All I've had since day one is $700. 4 out of 5 of us lost our homes. It was burned to the ground. We are only being told, stand in this line, sign here. What are we signing? Who is it benefiting, us or America? That's what I want to know. And I want to know when we get to go back to our home in Waianae. Maybe it's gone. We need to go back there. Are you guys going to just scrape it all away and say disaster zone? And America's going to get what they want, their satellite city? Because this was planned years ago. It's now happening. And all the poor people, the homeless, the hardworking people of the hotels, the kapuna, we lost everything. We couldn't even have our pastor come in and ask us if we need prayer in the very beginning, but Oprah could come in. Who is she? Who is she? We also don't need people like Haina Shiki telling tourists don't come to Maui. Because some of us, thousands of us, work in the hotel industry. They pay our mortgage. They give us our medical. And the medical, besides the county, is pretty good for somebody old like me. So don't go tell tourists don't come Maui, because you're not speaking for us, the working people. You're speaking for yourself. Tourists come, we love you. We have aloha because you will be helping us, the lower people. The grains of sand of Maui is what we are. We're not the ones living up in Laniapoku. Not one of those houses burned. Puamana is still there. Lahaina Shores is still there. Everything beyond the Civic Center is there. But the homes where we were working, where we're scraping, where we had less than $1,000 a month to pay for our basic needs of gas and food. We busted our ass. And this is what we get. Nobody called us. Our phones didn't work from 5 in the morning. The fire was not 10 o'clock when I went to work. The fire was still there. There was no water. Tell me if that's coincidence. No water, no warning, and everybody talking about the satellite city before the fire. Lahaina going to be the first satellite city. Well, hey, Jeff Bezos, you got what you wanted. Oprah, you got what you wanted. And the guy who owns the nut, you got what you wanted. Because all we got so far was $700, and we don't know who to call or anything.
Why is our town burnt down? Why are our family's houses gone? And if you can explain that to us in a logical, reasonable way, we'll accept it. But right now, there is no explanation.
A small family had to evacuate, and And their property manager had the nerve, because their house was filled with ash, that they didn't deserve to still remain in the property because they left the windows open when they were evacuating.
Most of them are they're even worse off now. I'm coordinating hospital visits because of the way that the system and the governor has imposed rules without any dialogue with any of the people who are doing the work on the ground.
Lahaina needs to decide what happens in Lahaina.
Shot a drone video over the whole area so that you could have pictures of your home and you could share it with your insurance company. I drove my GoPro on my motorcycle so you have images of that area for your insurance claims and also for a future litigation, because now you can't get in there. Now it's a war zone. Now it's like checkpoints and Checkpoint Charlie and guards and FBI and ATF and Army. These people have not been able to go back to their homes to get the contents of their safe. And I've heard rumors about who is rummaging through that. Again, I'm not here to spread rumors, but I'm just telling you. To not allow homeowners to go into and get their stuff is weird. To not allow press to go in there to get their stuff doesn't make sense. To not allow citizens like me to pull over on the side of the road and take pictures and videos from afar of what's going on. I can't fly my drone over there and watch the hillside for future strikes causing fires or looking down and seeing what FEMA's doing. To block everybody out is against our constitutional rights.
In my last video covering Maui, one of the big discussions that I went into was the fact that the media is really being kept away from the situation that's happening in Maui and isn't doing a whole lot at pushing back against the government narrative. They're not pushing them to answer questions that they should be answering, and also just the sheer fact at how much the government is putting in place what looks like a lot of different levels of censorship, not just from the fact that there's such a lack of transparency from these governmental officials, but also obstructing FEMA from providing any photo updates or footage of what the area looks like. There are still so many different blockades that are going on. As this guy said, Checkpoint Charlie's. There are tons of checkpoints that are in specifically the area of historic Lahaina. And again, these are the kinds of things that are just going to make people question the motives, the incentives, and what's really going on when there's so many different levels of secrecy going on. The last thing I wanted to touch on is something that has definitely been in the press a little bit, especially on like TikTok, and I've definitely seen a lot of people talking about it on YouTube, and that is Oprah and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson starting the People's Fund of Maui. Now, this fund started with $10 million that we're being told was initially started by a $10 million collective from Oprah and The Rock. Now, this fund is being called out mostly just because of the fact that these are extremely wealthy elites asking everyday citizens that are struggling to donate to a fund that, in looking at it in more detail, looks very, very suspicious.
Oprah has only raised so far $165 from her page link and around $4,000 from her viral video when she was probably expecting millions.
That will put money directly in the hands of,
People are mad at Oprah and The Rock, as more than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Looking at the fund organization, it's called Entertainment Industry, with their audit for last year, can see all the different costs that are taken from donations, including salaries, advertisement, rent, bonuses, and more of around 400 million, absorbing most of the donations. And the CEO salary is around 700,000 to $1 million, according to salary.com. This is why many people have shared their frustration online that a billionaire and multimillionaire are asking for donations, and most of donations will go to overhead costs. I don't know, what do you think about this? Would you donate to them or prefer to donate directly to the families?
How's it feel to be here, ma'am?
well, it's a little overwhelming,
And in one of the comments, actually, one person did provide a mathematical sum up of what $10 million or $5 million each looks like from Oprah's wealth and The Rock's wealth. And when it came to Oprah, $5 million is 0.2% of her wealth. And for The Rock, it was 0.9% of his wealth. So it's one of those things where the disparity in how much wealth both of these individuals have, but especially someone like Oprah, compared to the everyday people that they are saying, oh, please donate, it really just kind of goes to show how separated from reality both of these people are, which is sad. And I find kind of odd because both of these people didn't come from extremely wealthy backgrounds in the very beginning. So it just feels like they've really lost touch with the everyday people. And this is what happens when you get into a group like the elites. It turns into groupthink, and it turns into just you leave any semblance of kind of who you were before you amassed so much wealth. So what do you guys think about The Rock and Oprah starting this fund? Do you find it a little suspicious? Do you find it kind of off-putting? I know I certainly do. I think that it's just the optics of it is really awful, especially when we know how many people are financially struggling every single day in this country, living paycheck to paycheck with the cost of goods and just the overall inflation that has not come down since the start of the pandemic has really affected people in so many ways. And so it feels very gross, to be honest, listening to these two talk about how it's our everyday people that should be giving to the people of Maui, when just a few of them could totally rebuild all of Maui. Between Oprah, The Rock, and a couple of their friends, it would be really easy to do. And it begs that question of when they can do it, but they don't do it, and they do something like this where they start a fund, it just makes you question. It makes you second guess them. I don't like celebrity adoration culture, mostly just because it's a lot of idolization, and that's just something I don't really believe in. But let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. There is one other thing. I did save this for the end of the video, mostly just because it's extremely disturbing. But this is a scene that was filmed on the day of the fire. And as I have talked about in several of the other videos covering Maui, that police were blocking people from evacuating. But in this video, the police were actually obstructing a parent from going to get their kids. And as I was watching this, I was overwhelmed with emotions and memories of when we were hearing in the news and getting coverage about the Uvalde shooting that happened last year, and all of the different parents that were willing to put their lives on the line to go and save their children, and they were being stopped by over 300 police officers that were saying, no, you can't do this, with some even getting handcuffed and put into cop cars. This is a somewhat disturbing video, so take it as you will, but I think that this is more and more evidence that is mounting that what the authorities were doing on that day was completely antithetical to what should be done. The way that they were treating the people was extremely inhumane, which leads to more of the suspicious thoughts that people have as to why they were doing this. So take a look at this. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. I am wondering if this is what happened with a lot of parents and why the amount of children that are still missing is at the high numbers that they are, along with the missing people, which, as we've talked about in several other videos, the official numbers that are being given is very suspicious. But you guys let me know what you think about this and how would you respond in this situation.
Came in on? No. Turn around! Stop! Stop! I don't give a fuck! Stop! Stay back! I need to go get my kids. Turn around! I need to go get my kids. Where are your kids? Right at 501. Right at the fireworks sign. We're blocking this road. We're blocking this road. Nobody's getting through.
Nobody is getting through. My God, I can't even imagine. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would hope that I would just go and get my kids and save whoever else I could. So that is the latest that I have for you all. I hope that you liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and also share with anyone that you think would be interested in seeing this information. There is a lot of suppression going on. There's a lot of censorship when it comes to Maui. So anything you can do to help circulate this for the people of Maui is always greatly appreciated. My heart goes out to the people of Maui that are continuing to suffer from this catastrophe. And as always, I have links down in the description box below for where you can provide support to the people of Maui. Again, my heart goes out to everyone suffering from this. This is just so awful. And I send you so much love and light. Thank you again for watching. As always, stay safe, take care, and be kind to each other.